thanks for coming. If you guys were trying to figure out whether to go to the new iPhone release or the new Balto presentation, you probably made the wrong choice. But I appreciate you guys coming today. We're on the 8th floor. We're a 3.5 person startup, and we build software that understands phone conversations, listens to the audio in those calls, and in real time is telling sales and customer service reps the right things to say, basically to win the call. And of course, on top of that, we're collecting a lot of data on what's being said on those calls and presenting it to managers and things to perform their coaching process. So I basically, for the presentation today, just have a couple screenshots of the product, kind of try to keep it open for questions and that kind of thing, and explain how the technology works a little bit. So this is probably the single most important thing we do. Balto is listening for pains that prospects give in calls. If you're in sales, you know that making sure you can get the pain out of the person you're talking to is the single most likely way that you're going to get interest for your product. So if someone says, I have a problem with what I'm doing, an issue, a challenge, those are the types of words that you really want to hear as a salesperson. Unfortunately, salespeople all the time in the excitement of the call glaze over those things. People are trying to say the issues they have, and salespeople aren't really listening. So we detect all those types of pains, and in real time are alerting the reps to dig into that. So that's probably the single most important thing we do. We also look for objections, and there's all types of objections people give. I don't have budget, I don't have time, I'm not the right person, I don't like cold calls, all that kind of stuff. We're looking for all those types of things, and in real time giving reps answers of how to handle that. So, what does this mean? Gatekeeper objection, qualification. It means that if you're a large call center, which are the type of companies we work with, you might have 100, 200, up to 1,000 reps. They're all juniors. If you've all ever called a big corporation and had a bad experience on the phone, you know that a lot of people don't really know how to talk to customers. Turnover's high. They're new to the industry. It's not a glorious job. And that all exists despite the fact that there is training for these people. They'll pull off 100 reps and have a sales trainer come in and tell them how to handle it. But once you get back on the phone a week later after your training, in reality, people still make the same mistakes over and over again, and it's just human nature. So we wanted to make sure that we did something where there was positive reinforcement in real time before the call is lost, helping people convert more, whether that's closing a sale, improving the customer service experience, whatever the manager at that company wants. The qualification is a big one. In a lot of instances, people are talking to people, sales reps are talking to people who aren't actually qualified to make a purchase, which is a huge time waster for big call centers. So if you try to book a meeting or make a sale, and maybe you haven't confirmed the person's credit card number, or you haven't confirmed that they're eligible to buy, Balto's going to alert you before the call is over that you need to get that information, otherwise the sale is invalidated. This is a huge problem in call centers where reps think they've closed deals with people, and they're not truly closed according to the letter of the law or the letter of the company. And now they have to call you back and get that information. It's a huge mess, and it costs these big companies a ton of money. We also work on things like talk speed, talk time. If reps are dominating the call, we're trying to help them mirror the talk speed of the people they're talking to. All in all, this is all customized, but out of the box, there's about 40 things we can track. Another helpful thing, mostly for customer services, giving answers to questions in real time. So if you, in this case, were calling your healthcare provider and inquiring about the bronze plan, they may have 100 healthcare plans they offer. Reps constantly give the wrong information. They forget what is part of each plan. Balto will recognize you asked that question and just automatically feed the answers to the reps. So that's really all I have on the presentation. We started the company in January. Our big customers right now are Empire Today, True Green, N3, which is the 4th largest outsourced customer service call center in the country, Abstract Marketing down the street, Predictable Revenue, which is run by Aaron Ross, who's sort of a famous salesy person if you guys read sales literature. And we're hoping now to, by the end of this quarter, close one or two more of like major call centers. These are probably companies that you've interacted with on some level. They're outsourced, which means when you call these companies, a lot of times you think you're talking to someone who works for that company. In reality, this is a third-party call center that's been contracted by the company to represent them. And if you can imagine that environment, you can see why real-time answers to questions and real-time call coaching is like particularly important in these types of environments. So that's actually really all I have. I'd like to open it up to questions because it's kind of a new thing and I'm bad at explaining it in presentation form. So yes.
What are you looking for from us? What do you need?
Jump into the end of the way.
So I think the purpose.
What do you need from us?
Steals my closing question for the opening question. All right, no, go ahead.
So I'm here today because we've been in T-Rex for 8 months, and I feel like we're still not really like part of the community, and we're trying to change that. So if you guys, I mean, on a pure business like standpoint, if you like know call centers who are interested, of course that's helpful, but I don't expect you guys to know that. So if you guys are interested in talking about sales, trying to ramp up like a sales team, anything like that, if we can help with any of that, that's awesome. We're on the 8th floor. Everyone at Balto did sales previously. I was a sales manager over at Top Ops across the street for a long time. We have a huge library of like sales books and stuff, and we're happy to help you like ramp that process up for the first time, even if you're not like a Balto customer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm also sick, which is why
It's more like a talking stick.
I look like
No,
this.
What is the name Balto for?
So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Disney movie about Balto, but Balto was a real Siberian husky. I believe it was 1910. There was an outbreak of diphtheria in a remote Alaskan town, and they couldn't get medication to the town because it was like the middle of winter and the plane's engines wouldn't start. You couldn't like take the road in the winter. So this sled dog named Balto basically led like a group of mushers with the medicine across Alaska and saved the town. When we started building this, we recognized that this sounds like we might be trying to replace salespeople to a degree. And we wanted to emphasize that just like Balto, you still need humans, but it guides them through like the uncomfortable parts of the experience. Also, dog imagery resonates well. So, and I think also Alaska cold calls, there's like a pun. Yeah, the Disney movie isn't very good, I wouldn't recommend it, but the message is important. Yes?
So you're identifying why an initial customer might reject a sales offer. Do you offer any type of service in which you already have an existing customer, ways to sell them more product?
Yeah, that's a good question. So upsells are definitely an important part of what Balto is. In the beginning, when we started pitching this just to customer service people, they were saying, okay, that's great, but there needs to be a sales aspect to it. Otherwise, it's just like improving call handle times isn't enough to be interesting. So what we will do is building queues. For example, with Empire, the team that uses it is called the Saves team. And basically, they're trying to save deals that are on the edge and maybe bring you in to an upsell opportunity if you ultimately do go with them. So we will look for interest signals in what you're currently using. We'll look for challenges. We'll look for particular language and keywords that indicates that you might be a good prospect for like an additional sales opportunity. We take all that data, we do regression testing on the back end to see like which pieces of language actually do drive those upsells, and then we'll build that into Balto for each customer. But you're right, yeah, upselling is a huge part of like the Balto value prop.
Use the microphone.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, when I'm on the phone with someone, sometimes, quite honestly, you're speaking with them, and you have to be on your toes. Just your human interaction. When you're on the phone, you can't read human cues as well as face to face, and so about 95% of your attention is just trying to read the other person. And I guess my question is, this seems like it could almost be a distraction to somebody. You know, if I'm having to look at my screen saying, oh, you know, talk about their mother now, you know, I mean, it would be, I mean, and I don't know could you flesh out how the actual interaction works? Because, you know, like I said, being on the phone is hard and it's designed to help, and how does it not become a distraction?
It's a good question. So when we started the company, we thought it was going to be really distracting, and that was like probably our number one concern after, will this be accurate enough to like understand human language? In an actual call center environment, this is the really sexy part. In an actual call center environment, a rep will be looking at a screen. They have their CRM open generally. They might have like a particular piece of in-house software for that customer, and then they'll have Balto up on the right. Different reps, we chose to make Balto in our UI as like non-invasive as possible. And we're trying to give different reps the option to use it and embrace it, or not. There are exceptions where managers want to force it. I will say this, managers generally are like, I don't care if it's distracting, my reps are saying the wrong things, make sure they read it, and I don't care if it's uncomfortable. We got more of that than we thought. At the same time, when you're on a call and you think about all the distractions that may or may not exist, we want to make sure that when you do look at Balto, it's giving you good information. And in doing that, it means when you do engage with the tool that it is going to be helpful, and that's kind of how we combat the distraction. We got rid of a lot of cues and things because it was firing constantly. Now it may only fire 3 times over 4 minutes with really critical stuff. And we feel like if we get those 3 things right, people are going to value it and not find it distracting. But you're right. It could get annoying if you don't set it up right.
Right, if it were just coming at you
Yeah.
constantly, you couldn't keep up with conversation as well as what they're feeding you. So I think you're right, the less is more approach is
Absolutely.
smart at a critical juncture.
So how are the call centers incentivized via the companies that are contracting them out? Because for a sheer customer service capacity, is that call center incentivized to use your technology so they can report back better numbers to the company that's hired them to increase contract value, or just to retain business?
Yeah.
Or are there more tangible metrics that they're getting incentivized with?
It's a good question. So the dynamic between a big company hiring a call center and the call center itself is sort of a complicated one. And as a result, the big company generally call centers don't have a good reputation. So the big company will generally be monitoring the call center very closely to make sure that those outsourced reps are properly representing the brand and doing their job well. So when a call center can come back and say, we have a tool that enforces messaging consistency across these 100 reps, you can pull the data, you can see how many cues were fired, you can say what was said on each call. That's a really helpful thing that the call center can then present to the bigger company and say, look, we're not a churn and burn shop. We made this investment in the real-time language of our reps. So they generally see it as an opportunity to sell their call center services more effectively to a big brand. As far as the companies that do the calling in-house, those are well-known brands already, so they're already investing in a lot of different technology to improve the quality of their calls. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I'll just say with that, what kind of traction do you have so far?
Yeah, so one thing I think we're kind of proud of is everyone that uses Balto is, no one is our friend. Everyone we reached out to cold, and everyone pays. So we started in January, we have 1 developer, and we have 6 paid customers right now. Empire today, the carbon company, being our biggest deal that we closed about 3 weeks ago. That's 50 reps with the opportunity to 300 reps. N3 is another 40 reps using it. They have 500 English-speaking reps in their call center. So we have traction, we have revenue. We're 3 guys in a room, so it's not crazy. To put it in perspective, you could probably do the math. We're charging between $40 and $60 a rep a month. So if you do the math on what a year contract could be with 50 reps, I'll give you an idea of where our revenue is right now.
early in the morning for math.
Yeah.
Okay. Other question?
So when you roll it out to these companies,
Mhm.
is there a training component to it? Is it self-training, or is there, the three guys, I assume there's no support staff, or, and what kind of feedback are you getting from the companies?
Yeah. So I think training is something we're trying to improve. Like exactly how do you do an enterprise rollout to like hundreds of people in a way that isn't miserable? We've never done that before this, so we're still learning. I will say there's more. When we talk to these companies who have done big enterprise rollouts in the past, they expect it to be a really bad process. So the bar is really low for us to come in. But basically what will happen is, like, in practice, our CTO will log into like their server infrastructure, download the licenses to all the reps' computers. By that point, we will have already had the call scripts, the playbooks, meetings with the management team to make sure that the first version we roll out to these reps is like in line with their messaging. And then we do about an hour training with the reps. It's pretty straightforward. You just turn it on. It's integrated with your phone system, so it starts simultaneously, and you're going to just start seeing those cues right away. The challenge with call centers is even if you do a good training, like even if they think the training is valuable, they hate taking their reps off the phone. So you have to be pretty efficient in like how you ramp up technology. But that's also a plus of Balto because they don't want to do training off the phone. So if you can do it in real time, they'll hear you out. So does that answer the question?
It does. Well, the second part, so what's been
Gotcha.
the most surprising kind of feedback you've gotten from these guys? I assume you're getting feedback
Yeah.
to improve the product.
It's a good question. We get a lot of feedback. One thing I think is interesting is that accuracy has turned out to be less of an issue than we originally thought. If you have, let's say, 10 data points where Balto should fire in a perfect world, and it only fires on 5 because it missed the rest, because you're talking to someone who's on a cell phone in their car and the audio quality is a mess. We thought that would really be terrible. We thought people wouldn't value the tool and they would see it as kind of inaccurate. In reality, they've still kind of stuck with it to a degree, and they said, okay, well, 5 is still like an uptick from what we have. I think the negative piece of feedback we've received is definitely on the rollouts. With M3, they were pretty gung-ho about it, which was awesome, but it means that they just totally waived training, and we were getting messages from reps like, what is this thing on my computer? How does it work? And I think that was an example of where us just being better customer service people and us being like better human beings would have avoided that problem. It's not like a technical issue. But we learned pretty quickly that showing that you care goes a long way, and we weren't doing that as much as we could have in the beginning.
Could have used your advice.
Yeah, we could have.
Any other questions for Chris? All right, and do you have anything else to add to Aaron's question, which is when we always try to make sure we ask, is just what can the community do for you?
It's a tricky ask because in my perfect world, you would all just run out and tell everyone about Balto and send us a bunch of leads. I recognize that's not the reality. If you have a desire, if you know like a startup here that's trying to build out their sales process for the first time, we would love to talk with them, even if they're not really Balto ICP, but like we want to talk and see if we can help and like consult in some way. We do some consulting work separately, like for Juristat across the street. I think that's probably the biggest way that like companies in T-Rex could, like we could work with companies in T-Rex would be the most helpful.
Cool. Yes, James.
So
What I'm hearing you say is it sounds like startups have really used help with sales and marketing period.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a downfall for a lot of startups?
Yeah. No one can ever sell enough. You want like my personal manifesto on startup sales?
Absolutely.
I mean, we started selling before we even had Balto. So we're all like salespeople other than our development team, so we're pretty aggressive on selling, and I think more startups should be like very aggressive on selling. I'm not the best salesperson in the world, obviously, but like I think that
But humble and stuff.
yeah, I mean the fact like I built a tool for myself largely. Yeah, I think particularly tools like this don't sell themselves, and I think there's like people in startups think that they're going to build something really cool and it's kind of just going to go viral by default. In reality, even if you do have a really cool thing, there's still a huge friction in like transferring to that thing, particularly on the enterprise level. And as a result, you have to start your sales cycle on day one. In our case, it might take 4 to 5 months. So we started sales cycles in January before we had a product that are now just starting to convert, which I don't know if everyone thinks about that way. Yes?
What's going to make this thing cool? Something about like being a server, like at a restaurant, there are interactions with the customer that's boring, and then there are ones that are like exciting and fun. What's going to make Balto like make more of my conversations from boring to something exciting, which the customer also returns,
Yeah.
they buy more?
So are you saying what can we do to make the conversations more exciting for the customer or for
as
the
well as,
rep?
like, what also will make Balto like besides the well-designed functionality?
Sure.
What makes the robot actually humanly sexy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think right now Balto is just analyzing keywords, and as a result, when it hears certain phrases and keywords and things, it pops a script. It's still like a young product. In the future, though, we want Balto to be able to be like a true AI play, where it's understanding like tonality and like the mood of people, and giving that type of feedback. I think once we get that, if we're able to nail that type of stuff down, it will make the conversations a lot more human. That's kind of the next step for like making the Balto experience a little sexier for customers. The scripts, even if we fire a script at the right time, it can still be a little static. That's the reality of it. But I think your inclination is right that there's like more we can be doing to make it a little more human. So I kind of answer your question.
Yeah, like I can actually would you implement it in a restaurant? Like, is it like could you develop a platform that you could have like because there's a lot of TGI Fridays, a lot of Applebee's, and even though you may not put one on every server, you know, because like a customer isn't there to buy food. The server's there to have them buy more food, to have them have a great time. And like, I'm certainly you could probably gravitate a lot of further customer attractions. You could say, hey, I applied this at a TGI Fridays, and all of a sudden they were selling 6,000 breadsticks a week as opposed to 20.
I think in theory it would be tremendously helpful. I think in practice we're finding that phone sales are better because it's less awkward for the salesperson to be looking at a computer screen in that environment than other sales environments. There's also a practical challenge of like how we route the audio. In a big call center, the audio is going through sound cards in the computer, which we can like easily integrate with. When you get into companies that might be like more fractured or have all different types of technology across like hundreds of locations, integrating at scale in a way that makes like a SaaS company possible gets a lot harder. If you have something in mind, though, I'm happy to talk about it.
Cool. All right. Any other questions for Chris?
I'm very sick, so I'm sorry. It's like,
I was just going to say, you could come up and talk to him, one-on-one, but I don't know about after that.
Yeah.
At your own risk, you can come up and talk to Chris one-on-one. So thanks for coming. Come back next week. We're AdSwapper is our presenter next week. And so have more coffee, introduce yourself to somebody you don't already know, and thanks so much.
thank you, guys.
All right.